What's going on, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. I really do. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the chat on, and I guess we'll start off with this. Mainly because I don't really know where to start with all of this. There's so many different things to talk about. Definitely going to be paying attention to World War III, as that's going to affect everybody, right? And at least for now, I think it's important to keep covering, a little bit here and there. Got a couple other things to, to gloss over real quick, but one of the things that this does is you see the true colors. You see a politician for what they are. These puppet politicians, these parasites that are investing in like Lockheed Martin and Boeing and all the arms industries because they stand to gain immensely once we get into a hot war with multiple countries. I think that should be illegal. I totally agree with Matt Gaetz on the fact that there should not be what amounts to insider trading. I mean, when you regulate the very businesses that you're investing in, I mean, if that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. But there needs to be a lot of things, a lot of changes to be made, but who knows if that'll ever happen. Nonetheless, we find ourselves in the situation that we are now. There's a lot of people loving DeSantis. It's easy, I guess, for a lot of people to get sucked back into the left-right paradigm and think that one person or the other is going to save them from, where we already are. It's worked so well so far. DeSantis says the United States shouldn't take in Palestinian refugees from Gaza because they're all anti-Semitic. What's up, Shulamite? Welcome. Good to see you. There's really no point in me reading too much of this. I mean, a lot of this stuff, it's just the same old BS, right? Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis said the United States should not take any Palestinian refugees if they flee the Gaza Strip because they are all anti-Semitic. And he dismissed international entreaties for Israel to provide clean running water and utilities to the 2.3 million civilians in the territory. Yeah, that's a problem. I mean, when you got scumbags like Lindsey Graham and many, many others calling for the complete annihilation of Palestine, that they're calling for the murder of innocent people. What's up, Kutz? Glad you could join, brother. Appreciate you being here. So don't forget, don't let these emotional, I don't even know what to call them, but that's what they do, right? Especially the media and the politicians and the influencers, the actors and actresses. They have scripts. They have things that they have to push upon the masses, and they usually use emotion because emotion will get people across whatever line that you want them to cross far quicker than reason will. And I'm not sure how many people remember, exactly how this played out after 9/11, when all the drums of war started beating simultaneously, and you couldn't really flip through any television channel without hearing some type of claim as why we should annihilate a bunch of people. But I haven't heard, not that I recall, but I haven't heard actual call for genocide up until Israel gets involved, right? If Israel's attacked, well, then genocide's okay. Killing innocent people, women and children that had nothing to do with any of it, just because a couple politicians say, yeah, let's do it, right? Because they stand to make a couple of bucks off the weapons that are being sold. not to mention the New World Order's agenda as a whole anyway, and to get the remaining countries that still don't have central banks in them to definitely get one, because that's what's happened every other country that we've invaded. We set up shop, and lo and behold, a central bank soon follows. Surely it's a coincidence. I don't really care about this. That's typical, right? That's stuff that we're going to be can't escape it, really. I've been watching a lot of different influencers, a lot of people that I've followed in the past. And I'm doing it especially paying attention to what is being said about Israel and the types of positions that they're taking. Because as I said in the beginning of this video, you really learn a lot. They show their true colors. They show, whether they're just another, which almost all of them that are still being promoted by YouTube are put there, we'll just say, right? They have an agenda, and it's not their own. They are sellouts. They're just doing the bidding of whomever it is that's paying them. And it does not matter. They don't have integrity. They don't have a belief system. They will say and do whatever it takes to get the clicks, to get the money. And there are some out there that have values, that stick true to what it is that they believe, but it's rare that you find them, right? There's not a whole lot of people over on this channel, for instance. And there's other ones out there, but they're so incredibly shadow banned. That's why I'm always, banging the share. But it's so important, because that's the only way any of these messages, any of these videos, anything that we're trying to do will ever reach anybody else. So that is extremely important. I think it's important in a time like this to definitely be paying attention to the mainstream media. Not that it's always important to pay attention to what the mainstream media is talking about, because it's what they want to convince the masses of. And they could be talking about anything. Obviously it's going to be somewhat related to whatever, the new, but it doesn't matter really, because even in that, they can focus on certain topics and not focus on others. It's what they choose to focus on. It's how they frame it. It's who they're going after or demonizing. CBS News: are terrorists trying to enter the U.S. through the southern border? Here are the facts. Now, this is interesting, and as we're going to see going throughout some of these articles, the very same people for the last few years that have been saying, leave the border open, it's not an issue, even though they know damn well what they're doing, they would never admit to it at the time, right? They would never say, here's our MO, this is what we want a bunch of people, and you're going to see exactly why here in a moment. Problem, reaction, solution, right? So what's the problem? Well, tons of people are the longer they can keep this problem going, the better for them. And by them, I mean them, right? So we've had all of the three-letter alphabet gang mainstream media networks continually pushing the fact that the border isn't as open as they're saying, and there's only a few people coming, and no, they're not busing them anywhere. They're not flying them in the middle of the night to all these different cities. And then it started coming out that, yeah, they kind of were. And then finally we got to the point now, but it was only after what had taken place in Israel that all of a sudden Biden wants to finish the wall. Even though he ran on a platform saying not another inch of the wall will be built, Alejandro Mayorkas also stated the same thing, basically got caught with his pants down because apparently he didn't get the memo after Biden said, well, yeah, we're going to start doing it right. And then they had what's her face there saying, "Oh, it's the law. We gotta." It's like, no, 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 no. Like, things have clearly changed. What's going on? There's something amiss, and it's rather evident to me what exactly that is. It's the fact that they are. I mean, we've read the DHS memos for quite some time now, and that them kind of just blatantly coming out with no supporting evidence, saying that we're on the watch out for far right extremists being funded. Oh, and conspiracy theorists, of course, and people radicalized online, being funded by terrorist organizations somehow that have gotten here and have set up shop and now are working with far-right extremists to carry out attacks. That's like the number one threat. As of May, the DHS's last bulletin, that's what they're concerned about now. They're concerned about far-right extremists, which that's a very broad term as well, but what they mean by that, they don't necessarily mean the MAGA. They mean the people that believe in freedom. They mean the patriots. They don't care about the far right or the far left. They don't care about the indoctrinated, because they're going to do whatever they're being told to do. They're going to be manipulated by the media. They're safe. It's the people like you. It's the people like myself that think for ourselves, that are interested in actual information, and will seek out ways to gain that information and share that with others once obtained. That is what's dangerous, and that makes you far right, regardless of what your political leanings are. Which I am definitely not far right. I'm definitely not far left. I'm not left nor right. I'm not libertarian. I don't even class myself as any of it, but if I had to be classified, I'm sure I would be classified under anarchist. But I got issues with even some of that. I think for myself. I can make up my own mind. I don't need to attach myself to a group. Concerns about whether known or suspected terrorists are exploiting the migration crisis along the U.S.-Mexico border to enter the country has intensified following the brutal attacks carried out by Hamas in Israel over the weekend. Republican lawmen, right? I mean, what a perfect setup. And as we're going to see what's taking place in France, 7,000 troops are now patrolling the country because, well, they did the exact same thing. They just allowed as many migrants as they wanted to flood in. And then, well, that's the problem. And then they see the reaction. Yeah, people are being raped, and it's a different culture. It's just not a good blend, right? It takes time for like cultures like that to be smashed in together to actually like kind of work together or work things out. It's a long process, if it ever works at all. So naturally, the reaction of the people is going to be, kind of an outrage, being like, "What the hell's going on? We need solutions. What's happening?" And then there's the government to offer the solution. In France's case, well, don't worry, we got 7,000 troops that we're going to have patrolling the countryside for you. It seems to be what's happening here as well. Although we haven't reached that stage, they've always been a couple of months to a couple of years ahead of us when it comes to Europe, especially Britain. And France and Germany. Giving terrorists an easier way to enter the U.S. and harm Americans. I mean, absolutely, though. That's the whole reason that they exist in the first place, right? What is the point of having all of these, like the DHS, the NSA, all of that? There's so many of them that are looking into everybody, but you're allowing an open border. You're allowing people just to stream on through. That would never be the case in any society, in any country that wasn't trying to do this, to create the reason necessary for them to later on have the solution for. We've already seen the DHS warning about it. Like I stated, they've already been saying, well, we're on the watch out for any of this type of. Really? Because it hasn't happened. Well, why are you so? And if that's the case, then why are we still allowing it? Well, pay no mind to that, apparently. Just wait for it to happen. Wait for these psyops to be concocted by the DHS, by the FBI, for them to unfold. And then the people are like, damn it, Biden, you left the border open too long and all these terrorists are here. What are we going to do? We need help. Government, the same government that caused the problem. Please come help us. But they'll probably use that. That's why the left-right exists, right? Biden caused the problem. Oh, Trump will be in here. He'll save the day. Trump, save us. There's these terrorists. Biden let all these terrorists in here. And now we got to do something. Don't worry, right? He'll have a plan. And he'll be cheered for it. All those people that are completely indoctrinated and Trumpers all the way are going to be begging for the chains of their own enslavement. This thing has the potential. I mean, obviously, World War III, as I've stated, is official to me. What's up, Shannon? Glad you could join. But there's so many different things that this will be used for along the way. And unfortunately, it's probably going to get the traction of the majority of the people behind it to support a lot of the things. Just like I said, they'll be begging for it. Over and over and over again, this tactic has been used, and no matter how many times it gets called out and shown, and then people seem to wake up to it and be like, oh my God, like they just go right back in the next time, especially when it's a big one or something that absolutely has nothing to do with us, really, right? Hamas and Israel, but yeah, it definitely will, but it shouldn't. And every single news channel and mainstream out, they're all pushing different narratives and different agendas to fulfill because, well, there's a lot of them. Conspiracy theorists have gone viral with the claim that the Israeli government knew in advance that Hamas was going to launch. Well, Egypt told them, so how much of a conspiracy theory is it? Was going to launch a coordinated terrorist attack on October 7th, and some are even claiming without evidence that Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a so-called stand-down order for the Israeli military. But there is nothing to show the Israeli government knew of the surprise attack, which killed over 13. Yeah, there is. There's official cables between Egypt and Israel. And Egypt says that they were warning Israel about this. Of course, though, right? I mean, we're talking about Mossad. I was mentioning this the other day. They're reading all exchanges between any group that's in their sites. And clearly, Hamas would be the number one, being that they share the same land. I shouldn't say share, but they've taken the same land. You're not allowed to call out things anymore. The truth, none of that is. I mean, if it doesn't fit into that perfect little narrative that they're creating, then you are an extremist or you're supporting terrorists. Just like if you didn't want to give all of our tax dollars away to Ukraine, then you are a Putin puppet and you're all the names in the book. They even called you neo-Nazis, even though that's the most ironic thing in the world, because the only military in the entire world that contains actual Nazi factions is Ukraine, but that didn't stop them. It's the same old song and dance. Except they got a lot more to get away with this time, and a lot more to do. To us, to the people. A lot more to take away. But this is what I really want to focus on after running through some of this, just the typical type of stuff, is how this is quickly escalating into a world war. I mean, we have the likes of possibly one of the worst people on the entire planet, Lindsey Graham. Just outright, automatically calling for the eliminate. I mean, yeah, first he wants to just eliminate Palestine completely. I'm sure he's getting a nice little paycheck from Israel and, his masters. All of their masters essentially come from Israel, if you get my drift. And that's why they have their talking points, and they better stick to them. And whoever is the best bootlicker will get more time on the air. And they care about their rating. They want the votes. They want to sound like they're doing whatever it takes as far as Israel is concerned, right? Because Lindsey Graham has to know that this is an unpopular. Am I wrong in saying that Lindsey Graham is supposedly a Republican? Is that true? Because he is so far from even what a Republican stands for. I mean, why do we have representatives if they not only don't care what their base thinks, but they 180 degrees counter what their base thinks? Because, democracy is majority rule, is it not? Which I have my problems with that as well. Right, because democracy is two wolves and a lamb fighting over what's for dinner. Oh, we're going to see so much of this type of stuff. Jews faced most religious hate crimes in 2022, updated FBI data shows. And as this thing keeps kicking off and more countries get involved, keep in mind this all started with Israel, and it's all about protecting Israel. So speech is going to be a thing of the past, depending on what it was you wanted to say. Reports of anti-Semitic incidents in U.S. spike after attack on Israel. Anti-Defamation League say, yeah, of course they would. Eight people in here, 5 thumbs up. Appreciate the 5 thumbs up. If you could hit it while you get a chance, I'd appreciate it. It doesn't really help with the algorithm, but it helps with my ego, so thank you for that. Nothing really helps with the algorithm when you're as shadow banned as I am, or we are. I don't know. I wonder if this will play. And they don't normally play, but maybe we'll get lucky.
We are in support of our Jewish brothers and sisters, but we cannot accept a state like the state of Israel that imposes a religious and ethnic apartheid.
A debate and a war that tonight have no end in sight. Jesse Kirsch, NBC News.
With the war now in its second week, hospitals and staff in Israel and Gaza find that
it is kind of brilliant the way that they're doing it. What's up, Melissa? What's up, New Edge? Yeah, It is though, isn't it? I mean, everything is at this point. Like at this point, um, I'm not a fan of Israel. I know a little bit of my history, and yeah, I mean, they went through some stuff, but they've also done some stuff. And the reason they went through some stuff is because, well, one preceded the other. And I got to be somewhat careful what I talk about on here. I've kind of briefly found ways to mention what those things were, but as far as I'm concerned, they are the most absolute personification of evil that I've ever seen. And I guess we'll have to leave it there. But I'm not a fan of Hamas. I'm not a fan of Palestine. I know very little about Palestine and Hamas. I don't care about them. You know what I care about? Is us minding our own business and worried about what's happening here. The problem with these world orders or all of these intercontinental agreements and you're, it's a tale as old as time, really, right? Allies and this and that. But with the more interactions and the more authority you allow an oversighting governing body, such as the United Nations or the World Health Organization, to have, the more detrimental it's going to be on relations as a whole, because people in different places have different cultures, different societies. The people themselves are different from one another. There's no way you can just smash them all together and expect it to work. There's always going to be issues. There's always going to be a bad apple. In this case, Israel or Hamas. But they're going to. The name of the game is more power, more money, more power. As much control over the masses as you can have, and however you can manipulate them. It's a free-for-all at this point. And the only people that lose are us. The billionaires and their billionaire bunkers and all of it. They're not, nothing's going to happen to them. They create these wars and then they ship you off. Look at the poor bastards of Ukraine. We keep sending more and more money and resources over there so we can what? So we can allow more and more Ukrainians to be killed, throwing them up against the meat grinder? Well, it makes perfect sense when you see that BlackRock has this wonderful vision for the way Ukraine's going to be. They had an advertisement. I can't find it now, of course. But even before this war kicked off, BlackRock had this wonderful vision for the smart city of Ukraine. Kind of what we've seen with Maui right before some devastating things happened in Maui as well with these smart cities. Yeah, someone might say that there's a pattern there. I don't know.
Themselves overwhelmed as they fulfill their mission to heal while at the same time transcending the circumstances. Dr. Sarah Alsaka, a surgeon at Gaza's largest medical facility, has been updating the world since Israel's response to Hamas's deadly terror attack began, using social media to show the bombs exploding nearby and the hallways overflowing with refugees.
Well, that's awesome, Mitch. I got you in my prayers. I hope you do well. That's cool. Seems how you asked nicely. The FF urges Second Circuit to affirm injunction of New York's dangerous online hateful conduct law. I've been paying attention to this. There's a lot of this type of stuff going around right now. It's ways, and Luckily, this one happens to be being called out, but there's a lot of them in states all across the United States and other countries that have already made it well past this. That it's the same. It's all about eliminating your ability to speak on certain topics, right? Hateful conduct, hate speech, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, anti-Semitism. As many different ways as they want to go after you for saying something that they don't want you to say because it makes them look like liars. Right? When you present something that is hard to disprove and whatever they're presenting is obvious lies over and over and over again, or even if it's not an obvious lie, they've done that so often, they've obviously lied so often that you can't trust them anyway. So they have no credibility. So what do they have to turn to other than censorship? This is what happens over and over and over throughout history. Every major empire that has gained all that power ends up they get too big for themselves. They don't trust the people because they become too tyrannical. With that power, often, almost always, comes tyranny, because power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. History is I don't know how you could argue that. Now there could not be an argument for that, because there is nothing that has ever gone a different way but that way. And here we are again, only this time more on a world stage, especially in the Western front. And, well, they've grown too big for their britches. They have way too much power. And now they're getting a little uneasy about people being able to say things, calling them out so they don't look like a fool, so they don't possibly lose any of that power. But basically, well, let's just read this part real quick. EFF, along with the ACLU, urged the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit to find a New York statute that compels platforms to moderate online speech that falls within the state's particular definition of hateful conduct unconstitutional. And of course it's unconstitutional. It's your First Amendment right. Nowhere in the First Amendment does it say you can say things as long as they're true, or as long as you believe them to be true. But that's the approach the government's been taking. Local and federal, state as well, all of them, all of the governments are taking the approach that they need to be the arbitrators of truth, and they need to decide, because, well, it's just too dangerous to have misinformation out there. No, we're entitled to say whatever we want to say. Let it be lies, let it be hateful, let it be peaceful, let it be loving, let it be truthful, whatever the case. We are entitled to that, and it is not in the government's purview to take any of that from any of the people, because we are the government of this land. The people. We, the people. And they're trying to do everything they can to chip away at that and make it just this government, just like all of the other ones throughout history. That they have all the power and we are the peons, the peasants, the servants that must abide, obey, and do whatever it is that we are supposed to do to make Big Brother happy. But no, and I don't care what they think about what I say. If I don't support Israel, I don't support Israel. If they want to call me anti-Semitic for that, then fine. Add it to the list of all the other things that you've already added me to. Because there's a million of them by now. Throughout the years that I've been doing this, I'm every name in the book, and it always, because it's almost always, I can't say without fail, but almost always, it's because I've noticed something that was a lie, or I've connected some dots that ended up proving that some shit wasn't what they were claiming it to be. And not just me. I mean, this is the way it works, right? Anybody that can think for themselves or goes looking for truth and or finds truth and then shares it. They have so many names for those types of people. You could be a QAnoner, you conspiracy theorist, you're spreading misinformation, right? We've heard it all. I don't care. It means nothing to me what my government thinks of me, because I think far, far less of them. This is where it starts to get to the point of what I wanted to talk about. This is CNN. And for anybody that's been paying attention, CNN has been like pro open border since Biden has took office. Smuggler with ties to ISIS helped migrants enter U.S. from Mexico, raising alarm bells across government. Well, wait a second. This is an exclusive, right? So the very argument being made against this open border policy that CNN has been calling those people names and far right and calling people conspiracy theories for what's that one where it's like the Great Replacement theory, right? That's even on the Department of Homeland Security's threat watch list. People that believed in the Great Replacement because there was people crossing the border that may have. Well, now it's smuggler with ties to ISIS helped migrants enter U.S. from it. Why are they doing this? It's why I said they're doing it, and it's what's happening in France right now. The FBI is investigating more than a dozen migrants from Uzbekistan and other countries allowed into the U.S. after they sought asylum in the southern border with Mexico earlier this year. And that's a joke in and of itself, because seeking asylum, are you kidding me? They're not even tracking the people. They don't know anything about the people coming over. It's an open invitation. Come as you may. We'll set you up, though. We'll give you 4-star, 5-star hotels, your own personal chefs, believe it or not. We'll put you anywhere in the country that you really want to go. It's amazing. You'll have a monthly card. They get tons of money. They get more than the people that actually live here as citizens. And that's by design as well, right? Because could you imagine you come to this country and you've made, and I can't blame them. I can't blame them at all. The ones that are actually doing it honestly, but there are people that are coming here because they see the open border and they want to cause problems. The United States has leveled so many countries and killed so many innocent people that you better believe that they have loved ones and family members that aren't happy with us and would do whatever. I know I would. I know if I had a loved one, somebody a part of my family, that some other country just indiscriminately carpet bombed and took out a good chunk of them, I probably wouldn't let that one just rest. And we've done that to almost every country that isn't a Western country in the last 20 years. We have standing armies in Syria over their oil field. I mean, I could go on. I'm not even going to get started on that because we are everywhere we shouldn't be. So you better believe there's a lot of pissed off people at us. And not necessarily at us, at our government, at our military, at the military industrial complex. U.S. intelligence officials found that migrants traveled with the help of a smuggler with ties to ISIS. Interesting that they just decided to throw this in here, right? And ISIS was also named specifically by the DHS report. While the FBI says no specific ISIS plot has been identified, it doesn't need to be because we've already been told that this is a huge threat, apparently. I don't know where they got all their information from, but if they had gained that information when they said that they had that information, then why the fuck did they still have the border open? It doesn't make any sense unless they were trying to allow something to happen so that they can therefore do whatever it is that they want to do. And probably more of a martial law type thing. Oh, we can't trust anybody. And it's I've said it a bunch of times, and I'll keep saying it. What they're really, really after is you, is me. They don't care about any of those other people. And especially the third world countries and they don't care about any of them. Anytime you read these bulletins and anytime you hear about what it is that's happening, it always ends up being related to either conspiracy theories or people sharing misinformation or being radicalized or extremists or nationalists, patriots, right? It's people that believe in freedom, people that actually truly value what it means to be an American, because this is the only country in the entire world that is actually predicated on the very fundamental rights of the individual before the state. Laughable as that is now, it is designed that way. And it is kind of it's not easy for them to just create executive orders or do whatever they want, right? Like edicts from a king or queen or whatever. They can't just do it. Even though that was so long ago that was created, it stood the test of time, and it's almost bulletproof. They have to go out of their way and create these emergencies because they gave them emergency powers, which also is unconstitutional. But, we're in emergency, so now we can do this. No, they got away with it in COVID. I don't know why. I don't know why more people didn't. No, you're not. Because we are the government, and we are allowing you to hold your positions. You don't have a say over us. We have a say over you. And we don't like your tyranny or the way that you're presenting this emergency executive power bullshit that you're trying to cram down the throats and say, well, now you better listen to us. And now, you don't, remember how they were threatening people? Like, you're not going to go and get this experimental liquid inside of you? Well, you're going to lose your job. You're not going to be able, who are you? Like, are you serious? You're going to, it's time to take back the country from those types of people, from the Lindsey Grahams of the world. We need to take back what it means to be an American, and not play their games and not allow us to be manipulated through these types of things, not allow them to do whatever they want so they can therefore have the reason to then do whatever they want, such as the border issue, right? And they make it so partisan, where it's like either a left or right. You don't have to be a left or right. Just because you believe on some of the things on the left side, it doesn't mean you can't believe some on the right. They want you to be completely divided like that, so they can pit you against each other. But you just think for yourself and be like, well, I agree with that policy, and I agree with this policy over here. But that would be a huge issue, right? That can never stand, as far as they're concerned. And those are the people that are dangerous, as far as they're concerned. So now we got CNN basically saying that ISIS is helping migrants cross the border. Exclusive. Speaking of Lindsey Graham, God, man, this guy.
It's a good segue into what Senator Graham has been saying recently, isn't it?
And people need to understand that this is a very real conversation. They want to go to war with Iran. A very sizable portion of the GOP, frankly, probably elements of the Biden administration as well, as best exemplified by Senator Lindsey Graham, who has been going on television in recent days, calling this, quote, a religious war, indicating that it's some sort of holy war, putting us, I guess, against the side of on the side of the Jews versus Islam, and then also calling directly for strikes on Iran. Let's take a listen.
I'm tired of appeasing the Hamas, apologizing for them. They want to kill Israel, so does the Iran. The Ayatollah wants to destroy the Jewish state. They don't want to coexist with Israel. This is not a land problem, a boundary problem. It's a problem of you cannot live in my world. My God determines that you die. The Germans believed that the Jews were inferior people, and their goal and the final solution was to eradicate the Jewish people. Well, Iran and Hamas believes that the Jewish people should die as a result of religious teachings.
Now, this was never about Hamas to begin with. This was always about Iran. This was always about Russia, China, Iran, and Syria, and Lebanon. Some of you may remember, you have seen it, Aaron Russo, before he passed, probably for disclosing this, how he was talking about his friendship with Rockefeller, I believe David Rockefeller, and he was talking about how they had this plan, 9/11, and then they were going to go to war with a bunch of countries afterwards and essentially install their central banks. And a good portion of that happened, but something went wrong along the way where they weren't able to finish it. Iran and North Korea, I mean, there's the new axis of evil, right? That they just tried. Russia, China, and Iran lately. I've seen headlines about that. Just like it was, I don't even remember what it was during 9/11, but just like we said with Osama bin Laden being like, it's Afghanistan or whatever. The first country we went to war with was Iraq, right? Just like this is Hamas. We're already talking about Iran, even though we just released a bunch of money. Biden released $6 billion to Iran. That is a huge, huge number, especially when you take into account like exchange rates. But not that matters, because the U.S. is essentially the world's currency, the U.S. dollar, but the reserve currency anyway. So I don't know how it works when you're buying shit off the black market as far as like C4 and RPGs, but I know Hamas has a bunch of new stuff. They have U.S. military issue AR-15s. They got, I had a list up, but I closed that out when I was closing down DuckDuckGo, but they got a lot of stuff that they never had before, and I'm sure between the pullout of Afghanistan, where we left $80 billion of military equipment, combined with $6 billion given to Iran right before this. But it's all, when you listen to the war hawks like Lindsey Graham, that's when you know where we're heading. It's not, this isn't like conjecture. This isn't like an opinion piece. This is a United States Senator that has really deep ties with places like Israel, for instance, and inside of the military-industrial complex. He is the biggest piece of shit, I think, in our Senate. Now, there's some good ones, but this guy, as far as on the right, I should say, the biggest piece of shit on the right.
We're in a religious war here.
We are in a religious war here. That is the most dangerous rhetoric. It harkens back to...
He says, we are in a religious war. Well, isn't that... We're talking about Jews and Muslims. So what's Lindsey Graham claim to be? I take it he must be a Jew if we're in a religious war. I'm pretty sure he claims to be Christian.
Let me ask you about Iran, Senator. The broader region, of course. You said this week that the only way to keep the war from escalating is to hold Iran accountable, part of what you're talking about now, and that it might mean bombing their oil refineries. Yeah. Have you had...
That's war. There's no direct evidence saying that Iran is linked to any of this. Even that, Normally, I'll continue saying Iran. Normally, they come out and the Ayatollah comes out and they always claim what it is they do. They have integrity. Whether you like what they do or not, one thing you can say about them is that they seem to be an honest people. They seem to say what it is that they've done. They've taken credit for shit that I've never thought they would have taken credit for. So for them to be like, no, we this time we didn't. You know why? Because it does look like an inside job. Just like 9/11, where they keep saying, this is the new 9/11. Well, it probably is. It probably is for Israel, because I wouldn't put it past them. Q Bono, who stands to gain from it the most? Certainly not Palestine. What Palestine and Hamas, let's just say Hamas, because Palestine, they're just innocent people, just like you and I and your family. They're not out there doing anything. Hamas, though, the militant group, which isn't, that's their military essentially. Hamas, I mean, it is somewhat of an Islamic militant group, but it's also Palestine's fighting forces. So to call them terrorists, I don't know. It's a stretch. You could just as easily call the United States soldiers a bunch of terrorists for going over into other countries and killing people, because we've killed innocent people as well. And you have Lindsey Graham openly saying that we just need to wipe Palestine off of the map. And Benjamin Netanyahu as well. Like that sounds like genocide. These people did nothing, but you're willing to just, because Hamas made, no, that is a dirty mind. It's like horrible, evil mindset to have. Well, we just kill them all, right? Kill them all.
You had any discussions with the Biden administration about this?
A bit. I want to applaud President Biden for his strong statement in support of Israel. I just got off the phone with the Israelis. Their goal is to destroy Hamas in the south and try to save as many innocent Palestinians as possible.
Bullshit.
To prevent escalation north from Hezbollah. Here's my message. If Hezbollah, which is a proxy of Iran, launches a massive attack on Israel, I will consider that a threat to the state of Israel, existential in nature. I will introduce a resolution in the United States Senate to allow military action by the United States in conjunction with Israel.
This guy's had a hard-on for Iran as long as I can remember. Doesn't matter what it is, let's just go get them. Let's just go get... These people are disgusting. I'm sure if you guys got a way to call his office or let him know what a wonderful person he is, I think he needs to hear it from as many people as possible.
To knock Iran out of the oil business. Iran, if you escalate this war, we're coming for you.
How is Iran escalating this war? We're sitting here saying all this. We're already making ties. Oh, Iran this, Iran that. We already have our minds made up. They wouldn't even be coming into the discussion unless that was the case. What's up, Sarah? Good to see you.
Are you effectively poised to declare war on Iran? That's
Watch out for that roadkill.
very strong language.
I am poised to use military force to destroy the source of funding for Hamas and Hezbollah.
So he wants to destroy us because we are the source. We created ISIS. We've been funding Hamas. This is open. I covered this. My last video, I covered this. We funded Hamas. We created ISIS. We trained with Al Qaeda. We use these groups to our benefit until they are not beneficial anymore, and then we put them back on the side that we can call them names and blow them up along with the innocent people around them.
The idea that Iran read about this operation in the paper or on television is laughable. 93% of Hezbollah and Hamas's money comes from Iran. They're the source of the problem. They're the great evil. So if Hezbollah escalates against Israel...
Hey, Sarah, again. Different Sarah. I just got done saying hello, so I don't want to make it sound like I was saying hi to the same person, but welcome, Sarah's.
It will be because Iran told them to. then Iran, you're in the crosshairs of the United States and Israel.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, so says Lindsey Graham, right? He seems to be saying more than the. Who gives him the power to say this? Because he's a senator supposed to represent his constituents. Who's asking to have Iran in the crosshairs? I don't think anybody wants World War III, and it's already here. I think if any of our so-called leaders, our politicians, our parasites in office had listened to what the people actually wanted, we wouldn't even have been here remotely close to where we are now, let alone World War III. But now we are. Now we are in World War III, and it's building up. It's building up. It may not look like that yet, but I promise you, when I stated it, this is officially World War III, I mean it. I don't say these things lightly. I've talked about World War III for a long time on many channels. Never once did I said, it's official, we are in World War III. Now I have, because now it is. So now Iran's saying preemptive action by the resistance front is expected in the coming hours. Iran's top envoy said that a preemptive action could be expected in the coming hours. State TV reported on Monday, adding that Israel will not be allowed to take any action in the Gaza Strip without facing consequences. Obviously. That's what allies are for, right? And that's how this gets so carried away so quickly, because all of the people involved have very powerful allies, and it's only going to take a matter of time before one thing pops off that leads to another, and then there's serious bombs dropping. I wish it wasn't that way, but it's been written. Very clear. Iran. So now Iran is in the headlines all over the place. Who would have said this was coming? Can't imagine that. Give me a break, man.
Sleepy Joe lovers are not going to like this. We have put together the best MAGA mystery box, and we are giving it away for free.
Absolutely, Sarah. That's
all you have to pay is the shipping. No memberships, no trials.
To a certain degree, we still have power, but we have to act in like a unity. This community, whether it's on here or Rumble or whatever, we all know what's the people that are really awake, the people with eyes to see and ears to hear. Regardless of what platform you're on, we all have a duty, and that is to make sure when we come across something, I do everything I can. I try to help other channels out. I send messages. I share links. We all have to do that because it doesn't matter. You could think Rumble's on the up and up, and you could think that's a free speech platform, but they're there to fall. Just like Alex Jones created to fall. Just like Tucker Carlson. They create these things to use as examples for when something goes off. They can blame it and say, well, look what free speech got you. And bam, there it goes crumbling. We need to learn how to operate outside of them, outside of their rules. And sharing is a huge way. I know how cliche that sounds, but it's a fact. It's amazing just what one action, it's a butterfly effect. It's chaos theory, right? It's just how one thing can lead to other things. And multiple things can lead to many, many other multiple things.
He's going after members of the squad. What's he saying, Ash? Well, the South Carolina senator blasting far-left lawmakers for their, quote, appeasement of Iran's regime. As for the squad, I'll let Mr. Graham.
I seen your impeach Biden thing, and welcome, by the way. But do you honestly think for 1 second that Biden's actually running the show, right? I mean, clearly he's far too incapacitated. He is not the one making the decisions. You impeach him, and they're just going to put in another puppet. It's the system itself that has been corrupted, and that's going to take some serious fixing. And there are ways to do that, but it's not as easy as just taking that next one out. Like, it may appear to be the head of the snake, but it is far from that.
Graham, take it from here. Watch.
The only way you're going to keep this war from escalating is to hold Iran accountable. Hamas is a bunch of animals who deserve to be treated like animals. To the squad, shut the hell up. You're emboldening the enemy. You're a disgrace to the United States Congress. You're siding with terror.
This guy, man, he's too much. Just, it's war, 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 war. At all costs. It doesn't matter what atrocities occur, how many innocent people lose their lives. Let's just do what our lords over us tell us to do. And this guy is the biggest sellout, and he is one of the worst. I mean, obviously, Biden's on top of that list, too, right? I mean, there's almost all politicians at some point, you know, are on that list, but some are far better than others. I mean, even if I had to list them, which they all got their... Nobody's perfect, of course, but you got some that are just absolutely ridiculous. But then you got people like Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, which, guys, believe me, I know their pitfalls. I'm just saying, like, and even Rand Paul, too, his father was far better than him. But none of these people I trust. I don't trust any of them. And I certainly don't trust Donald Trump. Certainly don't trust... Just... I don't know. It's all... We're being manipulated. They want us on this party or that party, and there's no way they would ever allow... And that's a whole different video. I'll save that.
A terrorist over a democracy called Israel. You've lost your perspective here. I'm confident most Democrats do not agree with the squad.
Well, Graham says the only way to keep the war from escalating is to hold Iran accountable.
Oh, wait a minute. What's this? Israel attacks Syrian International Airport again. Funny, this wasn't being blasted all over, right? It did make mainstream news, barely. Because Yahoo put it out there, but Israel attacks Syrian International Airport. So Syria, obviously being an ally of Iran, for what? For what reason? Other than to bring Iran into this. Syrian newspaper El Watan reports that the strike hit the runway of Aleppo Airport, rendering it unfit for use just hours after it was repaired, following a similar airstrike on Thursday. This thing's blowing up quicker than I think even people realize. Iran trying to deploy weapons in Syria to open new war front. How come this isn't being told in the U.S.? You want to know why? Because this is all in defensive posture for some of the things that Israel has been doing lately. I know Israel is this tiny little Western country surrounded by Islamic countries. But what they have been doing, the moves they have been making, is the cause, as far as I'm concerned, not all of it, but most of it, for the instability in the Middle East. Not to say that there's evil on all sides all the time, but the amount of evil, the amount of just horrible decisions and things that would clearly lead to escalation is only being done by one country. Well, two, really. Israel and the United States. And it saddens me to say that living in this country, because I truly do love this country, but I don't love our government. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I think it's long overdue to have people that actually represent the people of this country. Now, they like to show us like the lunatics on the far left, and they like to talk about the far right extremists. But really, those are small, like the ones that actually may fall into there, other than just what the media claims that everybody is. The ones that actually may fall on those far extreme spectrum, outside spectrums, is so small and minuscule in comparison to us, the people. I have conversations with people all the time. I can find common ground. We have so much common ground, especially now. That's why they're doing like, the right's divided now, because some people support Israel and some people it's just some people aren't paying attention and they don't have time to. They work 9 to 5 and then they're busy. Maybe they go to their next job, or they don't care so much to go looking into the nitty-gritty, and they just trust what they're being told to a certain degree. But even if they didn't trust it, where else are they going to get their information? Once you read stuff, regardless of whether you trust it or not, if that's the only thing you're taking in, that's going to eventually set in, and that's what you're going to know. And they know that. That's why they do it. And then there becomes a portion of people that are actually awake and in the know on a certain group, like the right? Like the right or the left. And then there's people that are just caught up and indoctrinated. So there's going to be divides within the divide. And that's going to continue. They want to divide and conquer, of course, right? They just divide us as much as possible and keep the sides fighting each other, and while they continue doing what it is that they're doing and marching right into World War III, regardless of what the people think. That's my point here, is nobody wants this. Nobody wants this. If we took a poll of how many people, like regardless of whether you support Israel or not, that's irrelevant. Do you want us into a World War III? Should we be involved in every single skirmish that takes place? Yeah, innocent people lost their lives. That's horrible. But that's not the first time that happened between either of those countries. And most of the time, it's not the one that they're talking about as far as killing innocent lives. And they're openly doing it again, right? Like, oh, well, Hamas did this. Let's wipe out Palestine. What? Let's kill a bunch of innocent people because a militant group attacked your country and killed it. Like that, is that really but that's the evil that we live in. And that's what has to be eradicated. That's what has to be weeded out from these systems. And obviously that's not going to be a small task. And I don't think there's even saving any of this at this point. I think we've gone way too far. And at this point, all we can do is mitigate how bad it gets, but there's no going back. But we still got to pay attention to the scumbags such as Lindsey Graham's of the world and the Joe Bidens of the world, even though they're not the ones at the top, right? That's why you're not going to be allowed to talk about the ones at the top. because that'll be anti-Semitic. But changes need to happen, and we can do that. But violence is always the wrong way to go about it. That'll never work in our benefit, ever. And I'm not even so sure it's going to work on their benefit much longer. I mean, there's some big changes coming. There's a big man arriving. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Before I do, if there's any questions or anything, any topic, anything real quick, or maybe not so real quick, but if you want to ask me something or tell me something before I go, now would be the time to do it. And I'll definitely respond, of course. And I'll give you guys a couple minutes. This stuff just frustrates me so much. Like, just seeing it play out, and with so little at the moment that we can do. Now, that's not always going to be the case. But while it is, you get the sense of like helplessness, where you got these people that care so little about life, what it means to be alive, and what humanity is, and like whether it's where they live or their skin color or their class, or I mean, so many different ways we can separate people into categories so we can justify murder. And I don't think that really any of us, I mean, there's not too many people, I think, in this country that support that, or around the world support that. There are extremists, there are people that are evil, there are people that are willing to kill, but I think if there are solutions to these problems. That's thanks to you guys. So keep sharing. Get it out there. There is like a critical mass. Once we break through a point, it's going to keep growing because more people share more, and then more people share even more, and then even more people share. That's how it works. So I've noticed throughout other channels, especially like the last 3 that have been really shadow banned. Never have I had one as shadow banned as this one, of course, but the other ones were as well. But once you got to a certain point, it started like breaking, and you were able to kind of get through. Now, this one is the test of all ages as far as YouTube is concerned with shadow banning, because if we can break through this, then there's hope, believe it or not. And not just in one sense of this channel on YouTube. It says a lot for the power people have against algorithms, against censorship. It's whether or not we want to help one another to get the message out there and do what we can do. Put in the legwork, put in the time, put in what we got to put in. This is war. It's just whether or not we realize it. And being in the nonviolent type, what do we have, right? We have information. And not information to radicalize people to violence, but to open their eyes and see that these psychopaths that choose violence are the people that are causing all of the problems in this world. The people that are hell-bent on power, on corruption, on doing everything they can do to further benefit themselves. Those are the problems. Those are the issues that need to be dealt with. And they don't always need to be dealt with in violent manners. In a violent manner, I should say. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Information war. First and foremost, it's an information war. All right, guys. I hope you all have a good night, a good day tomorrow, good week, month, year, decade, century, millennium. Much love. Peace. I'm out.